All right. So last time we did a quick introduction to materials management. I'm just going to run through real quick what we covered last time. We set the objectives. We did a bit of introduction to what an ERP is, right? And then we did a definition of SAP. And here I tried to show the integration between SAP and some of the other modules. And then, yeah, this is also talking about the different modules and how they integrate. And then we talked about material master, well, master data, what a master data is, and what a transactional data is, and what the difference is between those. That master data pretty much are like the things, and transactional data is like the action that you do. And then we talked about how you can access SAP and a little bit about the interface and how to manage your favorites. We talked about that here. I hope you have been practicing all of that. And then here we did a brief introduction to what transaction codes are. These are all the actions that we do in SAP, and that with these 4 digits, sometimes it's a little bit longer than 4 digits. It's between 4 to 10 characters that these codes can be used to access different parts of SAP to do more different types of transactions. I see two people in the waiting room. There we go. All right. Okay. So welcome, Martha. And I see Glory is trying to join as well. And welcome,
Thank
Glory.
you. I'm sorry I'm late.
That's okay. We're just doing a quick recap of what we did in the last class. I don't know if you guys have the link to the video we did the last time. Otherwise, you can just watch that video on YouTube to catch up, okay?
Okay.
All right. So, yeah, so as I was saying, transaction codes are, these 4 digit codes that we can use to get into different activities in SAP. And there we do what we call, in SAP terms, we call it transactions, right? And I just put here a number of them. There's thousands and thousands of transactions in SAP. Okay. And then we talked a little bit about the organizational structure, how it can be broken down into company, and then every company has what we call company codes. And under those company codes, we can have plants. And then we have a purchasing organization that is responsible for doing purchasing for either at the plant level or the company code level. And then we said that the storage location is where materials are stored in the plant, and that a plant can have multiple storage locations. And then we also talked a little bit about purchasing group and how these are the group of people that buy things in the company. So they're the buyers, if you will. And then we started to talk about the material master, that in order for us to create a material, there's a number of things that we have to, um, a number of fields that we have to populate in the system, and that material will interface with multiple departments. And here I try to, show the different, what we call views in the material master. Okay. And then we talked about material types and groups, how there are a number of different material types, like, for example, raw material, semi-finished products, finished products, and that you can also have groups of materials according to their characteristics. Then we talked a little bit about those views that I said a bit earlier on and how you can have all of these views in the material master. We're gonna, just create another material just so that you can have a quick recap on that. Okay, and then we did a number of exercises. We did 10 exercises, and that was where we stopped, if I remember well. So, before we continue, I'm going to just do a quick review of, let's just create one material, especially for those of you that have just joined. Just a second. All right. Okay. So transaction code was MM01, and we can leave the material field empty so that SAP will automatically assign a material number to the material that we are creating. And then under sector, if I remember well, we chose mechanical engineering, if I'm correct. And then we selected raw material, right? Press enter. And then you have a number of views that you can select. The views, these are the views that have the different information that you want to save for this particular material. So basic data is just the basic stuff. Purchasing is where we put the data that is required for purchasing this material. MRP is for materials that are being planned and for which, say, for example, we have a production process, we don't want to be short of materials, then this is where we will put things like the order point and minimum safety stock. And then when we store this material, we put the data in the general data tab. Okay. All right. So I will proceed. And if you remember in the org structure, we said that you will have to create your material in a plant. For now, you can leave it blank, the storage location, or you can just go ahead and add a storage location. You can use this match code button to see all the options that you have for that particular plant. Well, not just that plant, so all the different plants with all the storage locations, right? So let's say for plant, let me see, for plant 1000, let's choose a storage location in plant 1000. I think I should have. I'll just take 001, for example, right? So in plant 1000, we're going to save this material in the storage location called 0001. I proceed and then I give my material a description. Let's say instead of lube oil pump, let's say oil. I'll just say oil pump, right? And the unit of measurement will be each. And as I said, there's many different ways, many different units that we can select, but let's just use each. And then material group is which group of material is this, right? If I remember, we chose steel in the last class, but let's say in this case, maybe we chose make pumps the last time, I guess. And then there is a number of other fields that we can, update if we want to. Of course, if we have all the information like the gross weight, the net weight, some of the things will be necessary, for, determination of logistics for, movement of this material. But they are not mandatory. So if we don't put them into those fields, SAP will allow us to proceed to create the material. Press enter. And you can see that I've just jumped from one tab to the next tab. Okay. So typically, when you work with SAP, it's good to get into the habit of pressing enter regularly because each time you press enter, SAP, validates the data before allowing you to proceed to the next step. So that's actually a very good feature in SAP. So here, more basic data, we just call it basic data too. So other things, you can update all of this, but they're not mandatory. I'm going to skip them for now. And then the other field that we selected was purchasing. If you remember, I said if we had to purchase this material, this was where we would, put some information that helps with, purchasing, you know. Here, for example, the purchase group, which is, who's going to be the group of people that will purchase this material. We have a number of purchase groups saved in this test system. I'm just going to choose 001. And there are a number of other things, like purchase reminder. And I'm going to leave all of these things blank for now. We'll come back to it later when we do a little bit about procurement. And also in the last class, someone asked about, tolerance. We'll talk about that when we get to procurement. Okay, and then MRP, this is, if we needed to plan this material, For now, I'll say, so if there are several options, but ND means no planning. So let's say we're not planning this material. Press enter. Takes us to the next MRP field. I'll just okay, so this asks us for how many, how many days is required for delivery of this material. Let's say 5 days, for example. Press enter, takes us to the next field. Press enter. It's not mandatory. Press enter. And then, storage information about, we already have some basic. So if you, this is more useful for those in the warehouse to put the bin number and things like that, right? Container requirements, just general storage information for this material. Excuse me. And then you have plant data two. Well, plant storage data too, which is some more, data about the storage of this material. And we reach the end of the selected views, and it's SAP is asking us that you're about to exit. Do you want to save? I say yes. And by the way, SAP, as I said, will give the material a unique number. And you can see we have a unique number here, 1299. So I'll say yes. And then you get a success message at the bottom of the screen. 1299 created. You can click on it to, uh, bring it up, into this larger screen so you can read. All right, so we have a material 1299. And I've also told you that if you want to see all materials you have created, you can use a transaction MM60. And if I, for example, remove that and I execute, it will give me a list of all the materials created in plant 1000. All right. So I have a lot of materials. The one I created, I just called it oil pump. You can, in these list reports, you can do a filter by selecting on the column. There's a filter here, set filter, and you can use wildcards here. I can just type star oil star just to help me search for any string of text in that particular field that has OIL in it, right? There we go. There's a lot of them. And I think, where's the one we created? Ah, yeah. Okay, maybe because it's not valuated. So I'm just going to remove that for now. Come on. Then I will do that search again. And there we go. So 1299 is right there. Okay. It's not valuated because we didn't put the valuation class. If I remember, we did that last time. The valuation class and all of these. And some of these are done, I think, in the purchasing view as well. So I think we can go ahead and do that now. So MM02. MM02 is the T code to change. Our material is 1299. I will deselect and only select the purchasing view this time around. Press enter. It was, no, sorry, it was in the accounting view. And we have not extended this material for accounting yet. Just a second. Okay. So 1299. I will extend it to, so you go as if you're creating the material if you want to extend the views, right? And let's just add accounting this time around. I'll just only select accounting and proceed. And here is where I have the valuation class. So I'll say, yes, this is raw materials. And our control price is, so there are two types. There's standard price and there's moving average. We choose standard price. And then we can give it a standard price, let's say $50. And press enter. No, this is just if you wanted to update some tax information. Press enter again. It's asking me to save. I say yes. Now I have a price for the material. Let's see, 60 evaluated. Yes. And now you see it shows up because now we have the data for the valuation class, the price control, and the price itself, and the currency. It's in euros. And by the way, as I told you, if you don't know what a field is, you can click on the field and press F1, and it will give you a bit more information about what you can do with that field. All right. So we have a new material now. Okay, so now to the day's business. Now we want to be able to buy this material, okay? And for us to do that, we need what we call a vendor. Some people call it a supplier, right? In order for us, so here I've just left some, context here that the vendor stores all the essential information about the supplier, right? That's the vendor master. So every time, for those of you that have been in companies, every time you want to procure materials, you you create what is called a purchase requisition, and then that purchase requisition gets approved, and from that approved purchase requisition, a purchase order will be created. And after the vendor has received the purchase order, they will provide the material, and then they will go ahead and deliver the material to the company and proceed to make what is called an invoice, right? So, and by the way, if you guys have questions, you can ask me. And some I put here, some of the, advantages of, having a vendor is that in that case, you will have, some kind of consistent information across all departments. So if you have multiple departments in the organization, then you have one vendor master, then it'll be easy for you to pass this vendor master information from one um, department to another, especially if we have linked that vendor with that particular material through something we call purchase information records. And we're going to look at that today as well. And then, of course, automatic population of payment terms. So if you wanted to pay the vendor, there are a number of things in the vendor master, like the vendor's bank details and the reconciliation account that is being maintained right there in the vendor master. And that, for those that are in the finance department, is essential for, things like, the general ledger and, pretty much just keeping track of the finances within the organization. All right. So just as we saw for the material master just now and how we had multiple screens, we kind of have pretty much the same thing for the material master. For the vendor master, it's mainly grouped into three big groups. General data, where you have things like, just the name, the address, some bank details, some contact information. And here I've put the different, departments that typically use this data, and that's FI. So FI here means finance, and MM means material management. So the material team and the finance team are typically the ones maintaining the data in the general data view. And then we have some company code view, where we have things like reconciliation account. This is purely for finance. We have, payment terms and dunning procedures. Some of these are, well, things that the finance department needs in order to process, things like invoices and payments for this particular vendor. And then there is purchasing data. So which purchasing organization will take care of this purchase? Which purchase group? What is the other currency? Incoterms is something, we'll look at this one a little bit later when we talk about international procurements. Then, yes, so there is also the concept of account groups. So, you have multiple vendors, and you want to be able to group these vendors by the type of vendor that they are. Okay. And I just put some examples here where 001, for example, is for domestic vendors and 002 is foreign vendors. Or we even have this concept of having one type vendors, right? And depending on the vendor account group that you have selected, that will determine the fields that are available for you when you create this vendor, right? So things that have to do with, for example, import, you know, those kind of data will maybe be necessary for foreign vendors, but probably not necessary for domestic vendor, right? Or if you wanted to do a what we call one-time purchase or one-time vendor, say for example the company has a list of vendors and they maybe have one special purchase that they want to do, and it's just a one-time thing. They don't necessarily need to save that vendor in the company database. They can go ahead and use 003, which has a very limited number of fields that are being required to be populated into the vendor master, right? So you will see this shortly when we start our exercises. And then here I've also talked about, how finance, how, the integration between finance and materials management happens in the vendor master. We have this concept of reconciliation accounts. It's kind of an account that helps you keep track of, costs from a you know, in this particular case, we are doing materials management, right? So there is this thing called general ledger in the finance department, which we cannot directly post to from materials management. So we first post to what we call a reconciliation account, and then SAP does some kind of automatic reconciliation, or if you will, to update the general ledger account. So we interact with our own reconciliation account from a material management point of view, and there is a reconciliation that happens in the background by SAP to the general ledger account. Now, this is not in the scope of this course. It's just something that the finance people do. Well, it's something more related to finance. And of course, when a PO, for example, is created, there are some, information, that is automatically available from the vendor master. And again, as I said, we maintain all of these data in the vendor master. If I scroll up here, some of these data in the views of the vendor master, but typically that data is being managed by the finance department, right? Good. And then, of course, when we do invoice posting and things like that, there is a lot of information that is, transferred from, yes, what we call our sub ledger to the general ledger. Okay, great. So let's create our first vendor for the material that we have just created just now. Our material is 1299. Let's go ahead and try to make a vendor. I will show you the menu path. So logistics, materials management, purchasing, master data. And here you have vendor and inside purchasing. So there are a number of views that you can maintain for a number of ways that you can create your vendor. You can create your vendor from the purchasing view, or you can create your vendor centrally. Creating from the purchasing view will create the material and only ask you for the purchasing information. So the people in the purchasing department, for example, if they wanted to create a vendor, they will come here and use MK01 to create the vendor. But the general way for creating a vendor is with XK01. There you have all of the different views. So I'll double click that. And so SAP has automatically populated for me the company code and the purchasing organization. I like that because I want to create my vendor for that purchasing uh, organization and company code. And if you remember, the account group I told you is used to determine what type of vendor is this. Remember, I talked about one-time vendor, right? In this case, we're going to create just a normal vendor, 001, right? And this is just some reference field if we wanted to create a vendor from a previously existing vendor. And for the vendor, I'm going to leave here blank so that SAP will automatically assign a number to our vendor. So press enter. And then the first thing is it brings you to this address screen. And you can see these, previous and next buttons. It's not like, in the Material Master where the screens are laid out in tabs. In the Vendor Master, they're kind of just pages that you can just flip through like this. So well, if you also wanted to see more, you can click on this go to and see on the general tab the different things that you can do. So address, control, payment transactions, or contact persons. In the company code data, you can have things like account info, payment transactions, correspondence. In the purchasing data, you have partner information and purchasing information and even more. Okay. So let's create a vendor. In our exercise, it says we should create a vendor with yeah, we already did 001, 1000, 1000, ABC supplies. Let's do that. So ABC ABC supplies. Search term is just asking us to put some text that we can use to search for this vendor later. And I'm just going to focus on the mandatory fields. There's a lot of fields here, right? And remember, I told you when you have this kind of check mark in the field, it means that it's a mandatory field, right? I'm going to leave this street and postal code and just go to country. Let's say we are choosing Germany. Germany is DE. And then you can select the region. So where in Germany? Let's say Hamburg, for example. Double click that. And that's all the mandatory fields. You can press enter to move to the next. And you can see it has just brought us to a completely different page, which is called control. And there is nothing that is mandatory here, but mainly this is where you will put, some tax information in, a bit more information about the customer, and so on. But I'll leave this one blank, press enter. It'll take me to the bank account information. So this is where I will put the bank account number, the bank key, account holder, and things like that. I'm also going to leave this one blank for now because this bank account information is only needed when you're going to make payments to the vendor, which will probably be something we do later in the course. So I'll just press enter to skip that for now. And then it takes me to account information. Here we have that reconciliation account that I was talking about. Okay. And this one I have to maintain because it's a mandatory field because you have that checkbox there. And let's use this one here. Payables, company code 2000. Let's see. Hmm. Let's use this trades payable. It doesn't really matter which one you use for test purposes. And then we have this cash management group, which is also mandatory. You can just select A1. Um, you can see that this is for domestic payments, foreign payments. So you select the cash management group that is necessary for example, if we created one-time vendors, then you could use AC for, it's just a group that will, manage the activities. Press enter. Payment terms. This is another important one. Here you will select which what is the term of payment? So I'm sure some of you know that, when POs are issued to vendors and vendors have, upon delivery of the material, they will have a number of days to process the payment, right? So here just says we would like to be paid immediately, right? As soon as the delivery is done, you pay. Or say if the payment is done within 14 days, then you can get a 3%, cash discount. If it's done within 30 days, 2% cash discount, or 45 days, as the case may be. So there are multiple different, payment terms here. Okay. Let's just choose 001 for, just to demonstrate. Press enter. And I'm going to also skip this dunning procedure. Press enter. And then it brings us to the purchasing data, okay? And here is asking us what's the currency, right? Let's choose euros. You can also select from a drop list. This is all the currencies of, you know, uh, the money in the world. I will select euro. Yeah. Press. I don't know if, let me see. Yeah. Again, you can see we're talking about payment terms, and we talked about it in the accounting screens. We're talking about it again here, because, as I said, that the different departments maintain different sets of data. So the purchasing people are only interested in this set of data, but might not necessarily be the same for the other departments. So let's just, for consistency's sake, let's select that. There are a number of other fields here, like salesperson information, some control data, ABC indicators, and even, the purchase group, delivery time. These are just some default values, right? Based on this vendor. Okay. So this vendor is saying it'll take me, I don't know, 10 days, for example, to purchase, to provide materials, right? But I'm going to leave those blank for now. Press enter. And then it's asking for some partner information. This again, we will leave like this and proceed. And I think this is the last screen, and it's asking us to save. And I can go ahead and say yes. Account number 8 already exists. Did I specify an account? Oh, it's not letting me. Let's see. Yeah. Mm, let's see. ABC. Maybe I have created this. Let's see. ABC suppliers, for example. Uh, ABCS. Um, region was Walk 02. Enter. Enter. I skip this one. Let's use this reconciliation account 164002. Just to see. Um, payment terms. Yeah. Euros. Enter. Yes. Now it's saved. I think there was some settings that has prevented it from saving. So you see, it has created a vendor and assigned this 0009. So we now have a vendor called vendor 9. And remember, I said that this data can be maintained, at the company code level, right? So it means that this vendor can only be used in company code 1000 and purchasing organization 1000. And we can't use this vendor anywhere else. And typically this is needed when we, create things like purchase order. If I wanted to create a purchase order, for example, for this vendor to provide the material that we created earlier on, I couldn't do it if I was not in company code 1000. Okay. And I'll just, we're not going to talk about purchase order in this today, but I'll just show you real quick how what I'm talking about. So let's say I wanted to create a purchase order. The transaction code to make a purchase order is ME21N. Press enter. It takes you to the purchase order create screen. This we are going to talk extensively in another class. But for now, just to show you. So we are creating a standard purchase order for the vendor we created is just vendor 90009. And the material was 1299. So here in the items field, again, we'll talk about purchase orders extensively later. Let's say we wanted to order 10 pieces of that material from that vendor in, okay. Now I'm going to start showing you some things. I'll press enter and it's asking me first, remember I told you when you have a red error, it means that I'll just press enter again. Yeah, it means that you cannot proceed, right? So it's asking us that we have to enter the plant. So let's say our plant is 1000. Now it's asking for purchase organization, right? And if you remember when we created the vendor, I'll just go back there. It was for company code 1000 and purchasing organization 1000. So let's do that. So purchase org 1000, press enter. And now it's asking us for which purchase group. If you remember, we also created, I think we added group 100, if I remember well, right? Or 001. I think it was 001. Press enter. And now it's talking about price. So I can say 10 euros, press enter. And now I don't have any errors anymore. Okay. And everything seems okay. So that was because that vendor was allowed to purchase in that company code and that organization. If I change the company code to say 2000, for example, and press enter, I'll get a red error that says company code 2000 not defined in purchasing organization 1000, right? Well, let's say uh I don't know if 2000 is, yeah, vendor 9. So 2000 is a valid purchasing organization in company code 2000, but vendor 9 is not created in that purchasing organization, right? So that explains what I was trying to tell you, that when you create a vendor, you have to assign the vendor to, a purchasing organization and the company code, right? So if I wanted not to have that error that I had here, I would have to create a vendor with company code 2000 and purchasing organization 2000 in order for me to create a purchase order for that vendor. Does that make sense, guys? I know it might be a little bit, a lot of information, but any questions at this time? No questions. Can you guys still hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, good. Okay. So we have done the first exercise. Let's create another. This says create a goods supplier vendor. Let's do that real quick. I'll just back out of this one. Not gonna save that vendor. So XK01 was my transaction code. Company code was 1000, 1000. But the exercise is asking us to create for account group 002. So let's do that. 0002 and 0002 is for good supplier, right? Press enter. Ah, okay. This is another interesting error. It's telling us that so this is telling us that we cannot use uh, our own. So SAP is telling you that it cannot assign its own number to this particular vendor. So because the account group uses external number assignments that are specified. So he's asking us anyway to specify an account number, which means that we have to put our own number in here, right? So let's say 9876, for example, right? If you remember in the first example, we left this blank and SAP automatically assigned a number to the vendor because of the type of numbering that is assigned to this particular account group. If it was account group one, then it will assign automatic numbering to it. But since it's account group two, we have to create manually a number. Okay, press enter. Ah, it's telling me that that can only be from A to Z, so no problem. Let's call it X, W, X, Y, Z, for example. That's our vendor name, WXYZ. Press enter. And we can just go ahead and do all the things that we have done before. Uh, yeah, there's some examples I did here. Goods Inc. 3, for example. So GI, this is just a text to help you search for this vendor. Let's just be consistent. Denmark 02, press enter. And this information is not mandatory. Press enter. We leave the bank details. Press enter. Enter the reconciliation account. I use the same one as I did. Use A1 as the, cash management group. Payment terms. I can leave that or I'll just leave it blank. Doesn't matter. Currency, euro. Press enter. And partner, I'll leave that. Press enter. And it's asking us to save. We say yes. And now we have another vendor, but this time the vendor is WXYZ. And it's for goods supplier account group. Great. Um, display. So we now know how to uh, create, right? We now know how to create vendors with different account groups. Let's see how to display an already created vendor. Remember, I told you that in SAP, typically you will find a pattern 1, 2, 3, where 1 is typically to create and 2 is to change and 3 is to display. So if I went back to the tree view, logistics, materials management, purchasing, was it in yeah, purchasing. I think it was in master data, and then we have vendor and in central. So you can see XK01 was to create, XK02 to change, and XK03 to display, right? So, and you will see this pattern in most T codes. If I go to this one, you can see 1, 2, 3, right? Create, change, display. For most of the T codes that have to do with master data and even transactional data, that pattern 1, 2, 3 is typically to create, change, and to display. So let's try to display. So we will display this vendor that we have created, WXYZ. SAP automatically populates the last data that we put into the field for that company code and that purchasing organization. And there are, remember, I told you three main groups of data in the vendor master, the general data, company code data, and purchasing organization data. So it's asking us now, which one do we want to view? We can, for example, just view only the address information. I will click this red enter button, and it just takes me only to this view where I see the general information. So the name, the address information, how we communicate with these vendors. You can see the language of communication and so on, right? So that's just showing us this view. And if I press enter, it's telling me I've reached the end and I can say yes. And I come back to the display view. Now, if I say I wanted to see everything under general data, I'll select them, go in, and if I press enter, then it takes me to the next view. If I press enter, it takes me to the next view, and so on, and it's done, and I can go out, right? Let's say I wasn't interested in seeing the general data. I wanted to see only the purchasing data. I can select that and select partner, say for example, purchasing data and partner functions. Select those two, press enter, and it takes me straight to purchasing data, right? And I press enter again and I see the partner information here. I press enter and I'm done. I say yes and I'm back to the home screen. But I can also just, select all of them using this button here and executing. And then I can just navigate through all the data for this particular vendor. Okay. I also told you you can use the go-to icon, the go-to command. And from here you can, flip. So if I wanted to go to address, I can do that. And if I wanted to go to purchasing directly, I can go to purchase org and purchase data and so on. Company information, if I was in the accounting department, I wanted to see accounting info. There we go. I can see the reconciliation account, the cash management, and any other data that I am interested to see, or the bank account information, the payment terms, how we want to pay, and so on. Okay, so that's display. And here it's asking us to change the payment terms to 002, for example, where we will say, for example, I think the first I did was immediate, but now this exercise is asking us to change the payment terms to 14 days, 2% discount. Let's see. To do that, we go to, and by the way, you can go directly to change from here. So you can go directly to change, create, change, or display. And we want to go to change. You can see that the transaction code down here has changed to XK02. And we are only interested to change and I think oh my, sorry. I think I was looking I wanted to change what? The payment terms to 0002. So I will be only interested in, I think it's payment transactions here. Sorry, payment transactions under company code and execute. And it takes me there directly without, starting from the first screens. And I can go ahead and change it to 002, this one, double click and save. And now my vendor is saved. And if I go now and display only the payment terms and enter, I now see that the payment terms for this vendor is 0002. All right. Next one says, let's update the search term, again using XK02 to something else, right? Search term is in the address information. So again, I'm in display XK03. I need to switch to XK02. I can go to vendor, change, and now you can see I'm in XK02 and I'm only interested in the address information. I select that, make sure that I have the right company code, purchase organization, and vendor, execute, and I'm there. And this is the search term and I can change it to whatever. So maybe I just want only GIC, or I just want to type goods here, goods, and I can execute. Yes, I want to save, and now it's saved. And to see that, I can go and display, press enter, and now my search term is goods. Great. Let's see. So say, for example, you don't want to use a particular vendor anymore, you can block the vendor for purchasing. So the vendor will still be in the system, but is not allowed to do any purchasing activity. And that T code is MK05. Now you will notice that I'm moving from XK. So XK is typically the T codes that we're using for general to MK, which is the T code that we're using under purchasing. Let's go to the, just say no here. You see all of these T codes are XK codes, but under purchasing, they're kind of similar, but now they're MK, right? Because these are the T codes that are typically taking you directly to the purchasing data. Let's see that. So MK05, let's see if we can block this vendor. So there's the block here. Double click. It's asking you for, you see the screen is kind of different from the screen of XK02. You enter your vendor, you enter your purchasing organization, press enter, and then it brings you to this screen where you can block or unblock a vendor. And here you can choose to, block for all purchasing organization or selected purchasing. So in this case, 1000. So I can say, okay, I want to block only for the selected purchasing organization. And then here it's asking me for the block for quality reasons. So why am I actually blocking? And let's say I want to block for whatever I select here is going to block only for that particular function. Okay, not so. For example, if I wanted to block this vendor only for purchase orders, then I could do so. Or if I wanted to block this vendor, there's this topic of source determination, something we're going to do later, or RFQs or quotations and purchase order, or I want to make a total block, then I can do that, for example, for XWXYZ vendor and press save, and now the vendor is blocked. Go back there. And yeah, the next one is yeah, we can start to make some kind of reports on the vendor just to see the vendor versus the company code data. This FBL1N transaction code is used. Let's close that. FBL1N. That takes you again to a selection screen where you put your vendor number and your company code, execute. Well, because we don't have any transactions to this vendor, there's nothing coming up. It says no item selected. But let's say if I remember well, let me just look for a vendor that I have that may have some. Let's just choose this one, for example. No items. Which vendor has some items? I think I have, let me see. Try this one. Okay, you know what? Let's not put any vendors in so we can see all of the vendors. So I execute, it's running, and then it generates this list. And typically this is a list that the finance people will be interested in, which is by vendor. So for example, vendor 15 in company code 1000 has these two, what they call assignments, and you can see the amounts for that particular vendor. Now, people in finance will understand this report very well. Yeah. So here, basically, vendor 1000, for example, in company code, that you can see that they have done a lot of transactions with this particular vendor. And these are the various, document numbers for those transactions, the date of the transaction, and the amount, and so on. Okay. So if you wanted to, view, finance activities with a particular vendor, then that's your T code. Now there's so many reporting T codes in materials management. And depending on your department, yeah, there are some, common T codes that you use frequently. And another exercise is asking us to change the reconciliation account to something else, right? Several ways we can do that. Our exercise is asking us to do it, just a second, using FK02 T code. Okay. Now, FK02 is not M, it's in the the finance menu path under accounting. I can't remember exactly where it is right now. But if I go FK02, there is also a possibility to find, I don't know if that function is activated here. So I will check and show you guys later. There is a possibility to find a transaction directly from the menu tree, and SAP will automatically, um, I can't remember exactly um, right now, but SAP will automatically open these menu path and take you to that particular transaction code. I'll show you guys later. So FK02. Now this takes you again to, a vendor uh, master data change screen, but this time around is particularly for, the fields and the screens that the finance people are interested in. You can see that purchasing is not here, right? If I had gone to MK02, for example, MK02, now you see that the general data and purchasing data is not here, but there is no company code data or finance data, right? So the different departments have access to transaction codes only concerning their area of work. Okay. So let's go back to FK02 because we are now, finance people. And I think that would be in accounting information. I'm not interested in address. I execute. And now I'm in the reconciliation account. And I have been asked by my boss to change it to something else. And I don't know. Let's just choose, that was 000. Let's choose 10. No, not 10. Let's say, let's say this one. Select that, save. And now it's changed and I can see it if I went there and I click display and I execute. Now you can see that it's a different reconciliation account. Okay. So my boss will be happy. Then next exercise is asking us to create a one-time vendor. Let's do that. Again, I go back here. Remember, I would just use XK01. And remember that the difference was in the account group, right? For one-time vendors, the account group is 99, 0099. Now, notice the fields are actually a lot less, not on this screen. Let's go back. Let's go past this screen. One-time vendor. Let's call the vendor that. OTV. And I'll leave the country blank. You can see under the control screen, we used to have a lot of things that we can maintain here, but now it's just short because this is a vendor you just want to use one time, right? Press enter. And again, you see in under the payment transactions, there's just this one field, which is not mandatory. But of course, we need to enter a reconciliation account. Let's say that one. And of course, the cash management group. Press enter. You can see that the screens are there, but they have very limited fields because this data is not needed at the moment. Will be needed when we have to pay this vendor. A bit more, like the vendor account number and so on will be needed when we want to make payment. But at the point of creating the vendor, they're not needed. So let's say immediately, for example, press enter and just skip that one. currency, let's say euro, press enter, and save. Oh, why does it do that all the time? It's A01. Up. Just a second. Time vendor, no TV. Let's say I will use this 1.6, this one. Skip that, euro, and now it's saved. All right. So we have now created vendor 11, which is a one-time vendor. Okay. All right. And then some, additional reporting. There's this pretty long transaction code here. Let me just copy it. You can use it to see multiple transactions for this particular vendor. Where am I? Oops. Looks like yeah, there we go. This one. Uh, so company code 1000. I will leave it like this and just execute. And you can see, for the different vendors, some of, some information like, their search term, their company code, when they were created, and so on, right? Their name, the address, and so on, right? I think I selected my company code, right? Yeah, 1000. So you can also just limit your data. Let me see. Let's say just that one vendor, for example. Then you have only the information for the particular vendor, okay? Phone number, the language of communication, and so on, right? The one we created was, I think we created, oops, did I lose my vendor? Yeah, we created this one. Let's see. And this is my vendor. You can see the search term, the name of the vendor, the name we gave it, the language, right? The group, and so on, right? So based on the information we have maintained, we can actually view vendor information using this T code. The other one is with MKVZ, which is actually a really nice one. Here you have to select, you can search by, purchasing organization, okay? And if you wanted to see all the vendor in that particular purchasing organization, then you can see quite a lot of vendors, right? And if you wanted to see just our particular vendor, you can select the field, put your filter, which was WXYZ, if I'm correct. Execute. Uh, it was in purchasing organization 1000, right? And vendor name. Mm, see, maybe I'm in the wrong field. Yeah, it's this one. We'll put it again, but I'll just put a star because I think SAP calls it vendor, blah, blah, blah. Oops, no. Let's see. WXYZ. There we go. Yeah, okay. It's because I should have used the long name, not the vendor name itself. So Goods Inc., right? If I just go back and do that again, I'll just put a star, Goods star, execute, and there we go. So all, I had, created a number of them before, but that's the one with WXYZ, and you can see some related information about that vendor. Okay, good. Any questions at this point? We have just finished the vendor master. Uh, of course, I know it's a lot of information I've given, but if you go back and, watch the video again and, try to practice by yourself, you will get the idea. Any questions, guys? All right. So we will now look at some other. So we have just finished, the material master and the vendor master. There is a number of other master data elements in SAP material management. And let's see if we can go through one or two of them before we finish today's session. I'm sorry, I'm not taking any breaks today because there's a lot to cover and I have another meeting at the top of the of at 8 o'clock. So it's let's hit the ground running. So, well, in other master data, we have already talked about, material and vendor, but there are a number of other, sets of we call it master data, but they kind of help us, to work with materials and vendors. And I've said here that it complements the material master and the vendor. One of them is something like purchase info organization. Now, what that is it stores the vendor material relationship to make it easy for us to find this, but the vendor for a particular material. Let's say, for example, the oil pump that we created just now in our database, and we needed to buy this oil pump. If there was some kind of table that maps vendors with materials, it'll help us tremendously when we create a purchase order, for example. So if you were in procurement and you had to make a purchase order for this particular vendor, well, to buy a particular material, and you weren't sure which vendors in your company or in your database can provide this particular material, this is where purchasing for records comes to help us. There are other things like source lists. Here we have again, defined, the allowed vendors for a particular material. So in this case, these are the only vendors that are allowed to purchase this particular material. In the first case, it's just a relationship where you have, things like prices, terms of payment, and lead time, you know, for delivery. But here, you kind of lock the list to these particular to this particular list of vendors, and that we call source lists. There are other things like, quota arrangement where we say for example, we have a consumable material that we buy regularly, and we have, say, 5 vendors, that will provide that material. We want to be able to distribute that procurement among those vendors in a way that makes it that SAP can help us to spread the procurement into these different vendors in a way that we have specified. So say, for example, we have 3 vendors and we want vendor A to provide materials 10% of the time, vendor B 20% of the time, vendor C 70% of the time. Then we will set that up in the quota arrangement, and SAP will help us to automatically assign these vendors when we create purchase orders. There are things like, contracts as well, where we have some kind of long-term fixed agreements for a period of time that we're gonna this vendor is going to be providing us this material for a period of time. And then we also have scheduling agreement where some kind of delivery schedules are defined. We will talk about these subsequently. So, so I started now to split the course into parts, right? First part, let's see if we can go through purchasing for records today, and we'll probably continue the others next time. So, as I said before, a purchase info record is the bridge between a material and a vendor, right? It tells SAP, if I buy this material from this vendor under this purchasing organization, these are the default terms. So, if you set, it's just like it says, if I buy that material I created, the oil pump from vendor WXYZ, then the price should be $10 and the delivery time should be 5 days and so on, right? It kind of creates some default values. These are the default terms because we have created a relationship between the vendor, the material, and the conditions for, supply of this material. So each purchase info record stores the pricing conditions, as I've said, the price, if there are some agreed discounts and surcharges, the delivery data, like lead time, how long does it take, tolerance. Tolerance is is the percentage by which we cannot accept the material delivery. Say, for example, we have ordered 100 pieces and 90 pieces are being delivered. Now, if we set the tolerance to 10%, then maybe we can accept. But if, say, 80 pieces of that material are being delivered, but our tolerance is for 10%, then that delivery will be rejected, right? So that's the tolerance. And we are going to see how to maintain tolerance when we talk about when we get to the purchasing topics. The same with Incoterms. And then, other administrative data like, the purchase order, validity dates, purchasing group, and even some texts. And some of these we will get very deep into when we go into the purchase order chapter. Um, did somebody leave a message for me? All right, good. So let's get right into it. Let's create some purchase info records. The transaction code is ME11. Just go back. And the menu path is, let's see if I info record right here. We create with ME11, we change with ME12, and we display with ME13. Let's create. Um, so we had created that material 1299. The vendor, let's say we want to use this vendor, okay? I can remember that we had blocked this vendor, if I remember well. And never mind. Let's just unblock the vendor. We had blocked the vendor with, I think it was let's just use XK05. It was WXYZ, yeah. And I will just remove that. Okay. Well, like I said, you can block or unblock vendors in this T code, okay? And I will also delete that and save. And now the vendor is unblocked, okay? Now I'll go back here and try to create a purchase info record for that vendor, for that material, in that purchase organization, in that plant. Now, these conditions have to match, otherwise you will not get the data that you have saved in this purchase info record. So let's execute. And now it's starting to ask us things like, some vendor data like, this 1 to 3 are the reminder days. So days, so if for example, delivery has been made, in how many days should a reminder for, payment come? Say 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, as the case may be, right? Or 10 days, 20 days, and so on, right? This we will maintain later. But anyway, all of these vendor data are the data that the vendor that is saved on the vendor side, right? So for example, we have our material number, which we have called 1299. And the question, and probably in the vendor's record is called something else, right? Maybe FB oil, for example, right? Oil 115, whatever, right? So this we don't really care about because it's the number that the vendor calls it from their side. Okay. And there's a bunch of other information, like, the salesperson phone number and so on. We don't care for now. So I'll just press enter, and it takes me to the purchase organization data tab. And here I have to maintain the delivery. So this is actually an important one because I want to know that if I procure this material from this vendor, so this material from this vendor in this purchasing organization, how many days will it take for me to get my material? What's the delivery time? Let's say in this case, 5 days, for example. And then there is this concept of standard quantity, which is a quantity that the vendor will, the quantity of that they will, the standard quantity that we can procure from the vendor. Say, for example, in this case, it's an oil pump. Let's say one, for example, or I don't know. This vendor says we don't sell one pump. For some of you that have bought stuff from Alibaba, I think they have some products that have a minimum order quantity, for example, say 100 pieces. Let's say in this case we have 10, for example, right? So standard order will be 10, minimum order say 5, right? And there is also, maximum order here, for which they will not maybe accept a PO if you are below the minimum quantity or above the minimum quantity. And then this is also where you maintain the tolerances that we have talked about. So there is the over delivery tolerance. So over delivery, that means say you have ordered for 10 pieces and they deliver 12 pieces. So there should be, a tolerance for whether you will accept the delivery or under delivery. So 10 pieces, if the tolerance is 10%, then you will not accept any quantity less than 9, for example, right? I'll leave those blank for now. We'll talk a bit about that when we do inventory management. It's part of this series. And then at what price? So here, net price. Here, let's say 500 euros, for example, right? I press enter. And it brings me to some other, purchase information. I will skip this for now. And also it brings me to the text, some text information, which I will skip for now. We'll come back to all of these when we talk about purchase order. And I'll press enter and it's asking me to save the info record. I can say, yes, I want to save it. And now you can see it says that I have this purchase info record created for this purchasing organization and this plant. And of course for that material. Okay, cool. So we created our first purchase info record. Here it's asking us to, create one for subcontracting. And by the way, I missed that. You can actually, select the category of purchase info record you are interested in, standard, subcontracting, pipeline, or consignment. Some of these I will explain in a later section. And I will skip this because it's just the same. The only thing is I just need to select subcontracting and then do the same things that I've just done, enter the general data, enter the pricing information, the purchasing information, the purchase price, the minimum order quantity, and save it. Okay, great. And let's see what's next. Yeah, to change the price. Okay, let's change the price. It says increase the price to, our price was 500, right? To change, as I said, we follow the pattern ME12. Again, you have to make sure that all the fields are matching so that you will be on exactly the same info record. Press enter. And the pricing information is stored, I think, in, yeah, here, right? But you can see it's grayed out. For you to change it, you have to go to conditions for this period and double click on that, and then you can change it to say 600. Save that, and now if I go to display, which is ME13, press enter. I go to purchase. You can see that the price is now 600. Good. Let's display all purchase info records for our material. The transaction code is ME1M. Let's do that. I'll just go back. ME1M. Here, info records per material. So again, you can, put all the different search criteria as you want. Our material is 1299. Execute. And you can see that we have one info record. Let's just create another one real quick. Let's create the one for subcontracting. And yes, ME11. Our vendor is WXYZ. Subcontracting. Press enter. I will leave all of these blank for now. Press enter. Let's say in subcontracting, it's say 15, for example, and 10 as minimum order quantity. And price here is say 700. Press enter, press enter, press enter. You want to save? Yes. And now I have two info records for this material. I can go back to my ME1M transaction, just go back, execute again. And you can see now I have two records, right? Where this one is a standard record and this one is subcontracting. And for that record, the standard record, the price is 600, and for this one, it's 700. Okay. So this is a way for you to see all the if an info record exists for your material or not. Any questions, guys? Source list. So I will stop here for now because it's almost 7 o'clock, and we'll continue with source lists. Yeah, it will take some time. So let's do source lists in our next class. So thank you very much for today, guys. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. I know it's a lot of a lot of stuff today, but let me know if you have any questions. Okay. Thank you
Okay,
so
thank
much.
you so much. Thank you so much.
Okay, you're welcome.
Can we have the slides so we for practicing?
Yes, I will send you the slides in the chat, in the
Okay,
WhatsApp
thank
group.
you. All right, thank
All
you.
right. Okay.
Thanks. Bye.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Okay. Okay. See you. Have a good
All right,
evening.
see you. Bye.
Martha, how's it been?
It's been good. I'm just following through the process.
Okay. Okay. Very well.
So
I
far, so
know
good.
you missed the first class, but go back, watch the videos. I'm sure you'll get it.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
But thank